Hi, welcome back to the garden. And today I want to have just kind of a little bit of talk, and I'm going to have some show and tell. There'll be today and tomorrow. I'm going to be showing the grids I've been working on all week. I finished 20 of them, and I'm going to be showing different variations of them to you and explaining sort of the crystals that are in them. But there's still some sort of cleanup stuff I need to do. Mostly thank yous. Big thank you to Andrea and Renee and the Throw Love Network for sponsoring the Earth Day. I understand they raised quite a bit of money for the charity, which was the nonprofit. It was for animals and environmental relief. So good to them for doing that. That was a good thing to do. The other thing is I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Shay. He and I met on Friday, and we did a side-by-side we recorded of us doing past lives. And if you haven't seen it, you really need to go see it, because I've been reading cards a long time. And normally I just don't talk about what I read and how it goes. But that reading with Danny was incredible. We each picked two people out of folks that volunteered their names, just their first names. And you'll find out people say, oh, you can use my whole name. Well, I'm sure the lady whose past life was that she was a medieval hooker. Doesn't want anybody to know that was one of her past lives. So that's why I always say no names till we know what we've got. And we got that. We did that one. And the amazing thing is I've done side-by-sides on past lives before, because when I teach it, everybody in the class, which was 6 to 8 people, we'd all lay out cards and we'd all kind of tell the person who we were focusing on what that past life was about. We'd go all around the table and everybody got lots of good past lives to think about. But usually I can only think of one other time in my life where the past lives were the same. And 3 of the 4 that Danny did and I did, we got the same past life. And he's in California and I'm here. Trust me, it was completely because the universe wanted us to see that. The only other time I've ever had that happen was I was teaching a tarot class, and I had a woman who showed up who had never pulled a card, didn't know anything about crystals, didn't know anything about incense, she didn't know anything about any of this stuff. And this was in the early 2000s. And she showed up at a class because she came with a friend, because her husband said, you've been with the kids all together too much. You need to go out, and I don't care what it is, go do it. So she showed up, and we laid out cards, and we all laid out her cards. We all looked at each other and we're going, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And it ends up, she'd been in the Salem witch trials. And that's why she had so clearly steered her entire life away from reading or doing anything. We were already 4 classes in. She was probably one of the best readers I'd ever trained. I said, you sure you haven't done anything with intuition? She said, no, I know all the Bible verses. I went to Baptist, whatever. And we all saw it. We all saw different parts of it. And then she told us the strangest story I've ever heard about something like this. When she was in high school, she lived in the East, and they were supposed to go to Salem. And it was like a big field trip, and they were going to several sites around New England. It was a senior trip. So they were spending the night in a motel or a hotel, I don't know which. But the day they were to go to Salem, and she was so looking forward to it. She was very curious about it. She woke up just deathly ill. I mean, really, really sick. So one of the teachers stayed with her, and all the rest of the class went on to Salem. And then about late in the afternoon, when they would have been getting finished with all the tours and all the looking around and all the souvenir shopping they were going to do, she told the doctor that her fever broke. She felt so much better. And the teacher said, well, if you feel well enough, we can go have dinner with the rest of the class. So she got dressed and got up and went and had dinner with the rest of her class. And they were showing her, they'd been nice enough to pick up a second brochure wherever they were to make sure she had something from Salem. And one of them was a map of Salem. And she looked at the map and said, oh, that's not the name of that street. And they're all looking at her like, we were just there, lady, really? And her teacher said, well, why do you say that, honey? And she said, I don't know. I just don't think should be the name of that street. And it was one of the only streets in Old Salem that had ever been renamed after the time of the trials. So, and she said, I've completely forgotten about that. I blank it out too. I ended up avoiding not going where I got killed. That's a talent. Anyway, so past lives are a fascinating thing. I think Danny and I are going to do a few more rounds of them. Not sure when, so don't send me texts. And the other thing is, if I do run anything like that, I ask you to email me, and I will tell you why. I used to just say, put something in the comments below. But if your name is Susie Snowwoman, and that's all I've got, and I pull your name as one of the ones who wanted the thing, and you never respond, then it's kind of wasted. So that's why I'm pretty strong on, that's not pretty strong. If nobody responds, then nobody gets anything. But I'm looking forward to trying to bring more of the viewers in and more of the people in the coming days. The other thing, so that's all my thank you. Thank you, Andrea, Lilac Lantern, Tarot Network. Thank you, Danny Shay, for going through that intriguing experiment with me, which I thought was just so much fun. And it aired on Friday, so you don't have to go too far back in the playlist. It's long, it's an hour, but I actually had people writing me saying, I sat through the whole hour. So anyway, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is notes about what I make available. Okay. If you go to my website, and I hate to sound like an infomercial, but it's www.crystaldirectionswithans.com. You'll see the various items I make available to you. I have a little thing called a crystal compass, which is 3 stones and a center stone. And there's one for money, one for self-healing, and one for called body and soul, which is healing both your body and your soul. The art of the heart is not a romance one. It's one to deal with your own heart. And crystal cash, obviously, is crystal cash. Those are things I had long before I had YouTube, long before I had any of this stuff. I was building grids, but I found people wanted something, but they didn't want a whole grid. They just want to try out crystals. That's the way to try out crystals. And you get a little sack, you can carry them in. Then people want custom compasses. And the reason it's more expensive is because I actually do a reading with you. And we try to figure out what few stones you could carry that could be your talisman stones or whatever you want to make of them, and carry them with you. That's another thing that I have on there. Then I have my readings, which are my readings, and I have my past life readings in there, which are my past life reading things. And then I sell the grids, which you're going to see several of today because I've just finished building 20 of them, which this was my building week. And I'm documenting them so that the people know exactly which stones they have and what's in them, so that they can use them to their best advantage. When you get a crystal compass, when you get a crystal grid, you get a little wand, and it's usually an amethyst point or a quartz point. They're not big, they're just little bitty things. But that's something for you to have to help you connect with the stones. And I explain all that in that procedure. Then the other thing that I have currently on my site is the eggs. And I have one of my experimental eggs that didn't turn out exactly like we wanted. It kind of fell back, so it doesn't look exactly, but they look something like that. And when you get an egg, you get a stand, and you get an allowance prayer, and you get a wand also, except we call it an activator switch, because my fabricator said she wasn't going to work with wands, so she's got an activator switch. Looks like a wand to me. And I send an allowance prayer. And it tells you how it is. You ask the universe to unite your energy with the energies and the crystals in the egg. Okay. These eggs are aimed at the 7 chakras, earth, wind, air, and fire, and the tree of life. And each of those has its own egg. So it's like, what do you want to use it for? The tree of life, I believe, and I've always sensed, is like Metatron. It's like that big cube where all of the sacred geometry figures have gone into one. I think of the tree of life like that. And then earth, wind, air, and fire is for people who want to work with the elementals, or specific directions, because each of those has a specific direction it's tied to. And then, of course, the chakras are the 7 chakras in your body. And if you don't know what they are, please Google them, because I'm not going to go through it right now. So when Danny was showing, he got an egg because he had a need in his family for someone who wanted to work with their heart, not just emotionally, but physically. And so he got a little wand, and he got out the wand, and he was showing how to use it. He was talking about the Allowance Prayer, and it's a relative, it's comes from several different prayers, but it's to invite the powers of the universe through you and you into them. And anyway, he talked about that, and then we talked about the fact that I don't publish that prayer anywhere except in with the items that I believe they go with. And right now they go with the eggs. That's the only thing I have where I use a prayer like that. I got a letter from a lady who said, why didn't I get a wand with my compass? Why? Because if you read, it says you get 3 stones and a centering stone. Or if you get a custom compass, you get the stones that we decide from your reading are appropriate for what you're working on. You get a wand to work with the grids, but you don't get the Allowance Prayer, because the grids are fired off your own intentions. Each one of these things is different. And I know to some of you, a stone is a stone and a rock is a rock. But it's not just the stone and it's not just the rock. It's how it's laid out that makes a difference. So now that I've gotten that off my chest, and I'm going to try and write things and explain things to people more fully. I try my hardest to get it across to them. But there just comes a time when you have to take a leap of faith and use what I've created in a way that works for you. And the next thing I'm working on, boy, is that ever the truth. You gotta be you. And it's not, but it's fun. But you gotta be you. So we're gonna go into grids. This is a new grid. I'd never made this grid before. It's called Sensuality. Isn't it pretty? It is so pretty. It's so pink. And it's really to allow your body to understand all your senses and how they work within you. And then here's kind of an old tried and true favorite. We've had this one before. It's called Transition. And when I first built my, oh, still got wispy. I get these wispy little, I don't use an electric glue gun, but little glue fibers get all over. I clean them all up before they go out. This is really the unwinding of someone's life to form into a new creation. And that's what the transition's about. And I love that grid. I love the way it looks. Now, this is one you've also seen before if you watch mine. So for some reason, people keep getting this. There's 50 plus cards in that deck, but they keep getting it. This is Remembrance. And this has to do with bringing forth the powers of your former life into this life and bringing forth your past lives into this lives. I don't know what that's doing. I just had my thing go to a Zoom meeting on my screen. Okay, perception. And I think this is very pretty. And perception is really bringing all kinds of new diverse elements into your life to learn from them. And I like this one. I decided to mix rough and smooth stones in it. I do that sometimes. I do that a lot with the amethyst and the quartz, but not so much with the other. And I don't know why my thing's doing that. If you're seeing a funny screen of me and my screen, which we're seeing, okay, I think I do know why it's doing it. Okay. It's because my little portable keyboard was underneath the grids. This is an interesting grid. I really like it. I'd never made it before. It's called Compassion. And it's about grounding yourself and using your own energy to show compassion to the world and to yourself. Give yourself some space. And if you hear a funny noise in the background, that's my daughter's laundry. I'm sorry. The laundry machine just decided to go nuts. And I hope you can hear me over it. This is friendship. And the piece in the middle of this is really interesting. It's a agate column that they sliced because it had such pretty colors. You can't see the colors that well because my camera's not that great. But it's got some really pretty colors that match the feelings. And this is another one where I used smooth and rough stones. I used the green calcite and I used the sardonyx and the sunstone. And I thought that was very pretty. I thought that one came out really well. And then this is the last grid I'm going to bore you with. I did 3 authorities this time. And the interesting thing about the authority is it's one of those rare grids that everything's in 3s for the most part, except the center stone. And those are big, chunky pieces of malachite because when you're going for authority, you're trying to express power, but also to express it with a kind and compassionate and understanding mind. So I think that's a good one. Anyway, all these back here that you see behind me, and these are, they'll be featured in tomorrow night's, with hopefully us not featuring my daughter's laundry. I will talk at you later. Thank you for coming by to see me at the garden today. I want to thank Danny Shay. And if you all have any suggestions or ideas for things you'd like to learn about, whether it's past life readings or other things, let me know, and I'll take it under advisement. Thanks so much.